Less than P class equals data end equals 338 data start equals 80 greater than. So here's what's going on in the markets today. Dow Jones futures are pretty much holding their ground this morning after we saw 2 solid days of gains. There's a cautious optimism floating around, and it's all tied to developments on the U.S. tariffs front. Less than P class equals data end equals 873, data start equals 340. Greater than President Trump recently made a move that's got investors slightly more at ease. He's temporarily exempted smartphones, computers, and other electronics from hefty new tariffs. That's huge. Those kinds of items hit consumers directly, so avoiding price hikes there helps calm inflation fears and market nerves. On top of that, there's talk of giving the auto sector a bit of a breather too. The administration is floating a delay on tariffs for car makers, which would give them time to shift manufacturing back to the U.S. if needed. Less than P class equals data end equals 1110, data start equals 875 greater than. Why does this matter? Well, the more narrow and strategic the tariffs, the less they tend to shake up prices and growth. Investors like that, they don't mind tariffs if they're targeted and not overly disruptive to the broader economy. Less than P class equals data end equals 1328. Data start equals 1112 greater than as of early this morning, around 6:10 a.m. Eastern. Dow futures inched up just 0.01%. The S&P 500 added 0.13%. And Nasdaq futures gained a modest 0.28%. Nothing crazy, but definitely holding on to those previous gains. Less than P class equals data end equals 1815. Data start equals 1330 greater than. Now the next thing investors are watching closely is corporate earnings. Earnings season kicked off just a few days ago, and we're starting to get the real meat of it. Before the bell today, we're expecting results from big players like Bank of America, Citigroup, Johnson & Johnson, and PNC Financial. It's not just about the numbers, either. Investors will be digging into what these companies say about the future, especially given the uncertainty around tariffs and interest rates. Less than P class equals data end equals 2216, data start equals 1817 greater than. And speaking of interest rates, here's the other plot twist. After the market closed Monday, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent mentioned in a Bloomberg interview that the Trump administration is already actively thinking about who could replace Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Powell's term isn't up for another 13 months, but apparently, the White House is planning to start the interview process this fall. Less than P class equals data end equals 2537, data start equals 2218 greater than. This isn't totally out of left field. Trump elevated Powell to the position in 2018, but quickly turned sour on him just a year later. He's been a vocal critic ever since, especially when the Fed hasn't aligned with his economic agenda. What caught everyone off guard, though, was just how openly Bessent spoke about it. Less than P class equals data end equals 2821, data start equals 2539 greater than. So while markets are relatively calm today, there's definitely a sense of anticipation building. Tariff decisions, earnings results, and potential Fed leadership changes are all pieces of the puzzle investors are watching closely. Stay tuned. Things could get interesting real quick. Stay subscribed for more videos.